So today I want to talk about 2 steps forward, 1 step back. First of all, I just want to really thank everyone who's given us a lot of encouragement and good vibes. The last few weeks, we've been talking about what's the next step for our community, like kind of like our next level. And it's change is never easy. It's kind of what it comes down to. But I'm very uplifted to hear how many people are excited about change. And change is never easy, but change is inevitable. It's part of life. And we're going to be talking about that. Not that we want to change for the sake of change or for the fun of it, but it is a part of life. So hopefully in the next few weeks or so, we'll be able to kind of share more, but we're working on that. It's also not the best time because so many people are gone in the summer, but we'll see. But in terms of the sermon, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Adonia and I often use this phrase. I don't know if you ever use it in your daily life or your personal. I feel like we use it pretty regularly. I feel like it kind of sums up our life personally, our marriage, our work as pastors. We often feel like we are taking 2 steps forward and then taking 1 step back. Sometimes it feels like we're taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back, which doesn't feel as good even as taking, at least when you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, you moved forward a little bit. But it doesn't always feel like that in life, and that's also just part of reality too. Most of us we understand this chart, right? This idea of if we want to go up or we want to go towards some kind of goal in life, something we feel is worth investing into, it's not going to look like this, right? It's going to look like this. We believe. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be progress, there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be peaks, and there's going to be valleys. This is what we believe intellectually or conceptually. But what is that? Okay. But we don't like it. We don't want our life to look like this. We want our life to look like this. We want to be able to set our eye on something that we want to accomplish, and we want to make steady progress towards it. We want to see our efforts bear fruit proportionally to the amount that we put in. If I put in, 10 hours of work, I'd like to see 10 whatevers of success for my work, And we don't like the idea of having to go through these ups and downs. We don't actually like the idea of setbacks. So I want to share a couple quotes here real quick from the Bible. No. For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord uplifts him with his hand. And I share these quotes to focus in on the point that we are going to have downs in life. We are going to have falls in life. We're going to have setbacks in life. And sometimes they're going to be really, really painful. But somehow we kind of trick ourselves in thinking that if I have a setback, if I have maybe reached a certain point in my life and then I went down, that makes me a failure. We think that we understand that this is true, but when we hit that down point there, we don't think of it as like, oh, I'm just at a part of the process, this is natural and this is normal. No, actually, this is the time where I'm going to ask myself, what did I do wrong? I'm such a loser. I'm such a failure. it doesn't feel like this is just part of the journey. It feels really hard, and it feels very discouraging. We think that people live this way because we have kind of a skewed perspective on life. Or maybe we see somebody that we really admire and they're at the peak of their life. You know, somebody like, I don't know, who's somebody who just seems like they have it all?
Your family.
Oh. We'll have to talk about that, Chelsea. I'm talking about somebody famous, somebody important. All right, I heard a couple Taylor Swifts over here. I heard Michael Jackson. Yeah, he's not alive, but he definitely achieved a lot of fame, that's for sure. Tom Brady. Didn't he just get divorced recently? Because it was really weird. Yeah, never mind. Peyton Manning. All right, Peyton Manning. Yeah. Very good. Charlie Kirk. All right. John Elway. All right. Who I was thinking, there's that one really motivational speaker, that one guy, what's his name? Tony Robbins. He's always inspired me. I'm like, he's jumping around, and he looks really young at spirit, but he doesn't look so young anymore. But he still seems to be inspired, so that's really great. 'Cause I hate seeing it, people who are very inspiring, but then they just kind of, I don't know, seems like they lose their motivation or something really kind of bottoms out in their life. Anyway, the point is that sometimes we look at people in their life and we see them at the top of their game and we think, that's awesome. I want my life to be like that. It doesn't look like we know that they probably overcame some hardships, but somehow it seems like they just kind of magically appeared there. And I think that if you combine that with like social media, then it makes it very easy to kind of just put on a show that your life is a certain way, but maybe behind the scenes, you don't see all the hard work that it took to get there, all the challenges that you had to overcome, or maybe it's just a show, and there's not really substance there to begin with. The point is, I've never met anyone who's lived their life this way. I've never met anyone. I don't think there's anybody. There maybe there's people out there who, set their eye on something important. They had something valuable they wanted to accomplish, and they just went for it, and it all worked out. Maybe. I don't think so. I think that even for people who look like they have it all, I think that if you were to talk to them and really kind of dig into their life, you'll find lots of obstacles that were overcome to get to where they were. Maybe times where they felt like giving up. This is a quote from our founder, Reverend Moon. He said, "One important thing is that we must never be arrogant in thinking of ourselves. You may be prosperous now, but there is no guarantee that you can keep that position. On the contrary, it is advisable. Therefore, when you are up, you must be prepared to go down." So this can kind of manifest itself in many ways in our life. We might have a addiction that we thought we overcame that suddenly kind of relapse. We relapse into it. It could be a bad investment. Years of working, making money, and make a bad investment and you lose a lot of money or you lose all your money. Could be being really let down or betrayed by a close family member or someone that you really cared about or really trusted. It could be losing a job or having some major setback in your career. I think there's so many ways in which we experience setbacks in our life. And it's very common and often that as we go through life, we find ourselves in one of those valleys. And one of the things that I find to be really powerful about the song that music ministry performed is that we take it for granted how easy it can be to get stuck in the valley. We can get trapped there. We could live our whole life in one of those valleys. And we get trapped because we end up there, we didn't want to be there, and we don't know how to get out. We're stuck. And one of the things that I recognize about being in this place, because I've been there many times, there's a lot of pain, yes, but there's also a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear when we're in the valley. When we are at the peak of our life, and you can imagine what that may look like for you, I don't know. I think everyone's a little bit different. But when things are going the way that we want things to go, and we just feel like things are working out for us, it's very easy to be open and honest. Take some selfies, post them on Instagram, let the world know, hey, man, life is good. Here, buy my book or whatever, And it's very easy to hey, hit me up for some advice. I'll let you know how I got here. It's a little bit more easy to be open and vulnerable and share my life with the world when I feel like I'm doing really good. And that's kind of like being at the mountaintop. And I in my mind, I visualize, the sun is shining, everything is bright, just visible for everyone to see. And then there's the valley. And the valley is darker because it's shaded in by all the mountains. No one's looking down at the valley. People are looking up where they want to be, not down there. You can't really see where you're trying to go. I think it's always whenever we're driving back from Missouri or somewhere from the east into Denver, I always find it's really interesting how you're driving and it's all flat, and then you see the mountains in the distance, and you can see all the beautiful mountains. But then when you get closer to the mountains, you actually don't see so many mountains anymore. You can't see the distant peaks. You can only see kind of what's in front of you. And those mountains hide the mountains behind them. I kind of feel like it's that way with being in the valley as well. You have somewhere you want to be, goal or ambitions or fulfillment in life, but it's hard to actually see them. You just get kind of trapped in the small space where you're at. And we don't want people to see us. We don't post selfies on Instagram when we're in a low in life. Most people don't. Some people probably do, but most people don't. We don't want people to see us when we're down. We don't want people to see that we were up here and now we're down here. We don't want people to be disappointed. We don't want people to judge us or to misunderstand us, or even use our bad circumstances against us, maybe some way in the future. Reality is these things happen. The reality is that we all have had experiences, right? I would imagine most of us have, where people don't always look at us when we're down with compassion or care. Sometimes people do judge you. So we tend to hide when we're down. we tend to try to keep our situation a secret. And we're afraid that if people knew our real situation, they would think less of us. Or maybe you don't have that fear. It's a fear I can relate to. But this is an area that we have to be really careful of, because bad things fester in the shadows. It's one of the things I really like about High Noon organization. One of many things I really love about the High Noon organization that Andrew is the director of. They really sincere about trying to bring everything into the light, to be really just bring everything into the open and not hide things, and bring things into a place where healing can happen. Because when we try to hide our challenges and our downs, our valleys of life, then things tend to grow in these shadows. And Adonia and I and my parents, we got a house a few months back, and I've had a decent amount of experience with home renovation work, just dealing with all the old properties here at the church. And one of the things is that there's like surface issues, and then there's like deep down issues. And so the surface issues don't bother me so much. Like in our sink in our kitchen, there's like right behind the sink, there's a little, what do you call it? Splash board. Okay. And there's kind of like a place there where there's, water tends to collect there, right? And there's a little bit of mold growing there. And I tried spraying it with some bleach, and it didn't go away. And I was like, oh well, not that big of a deal. I'm not really that worried about it. I mean, it's kind of gross. I don't like it, but it's not going to, destroy the house or whatever. It's not going to be a huge problem. Hopefully we'll deal with it eventually. But when I was working with other houses before, the real problems are like the leak that you don't notice, and it's going on for like 15 years. And then all of a sudden you have to rip out everything. You have to rip out your bathroom, you have to rip out your kitchen, because there's no way to save it at that point. Or another thing that we discovered is that termites are actually fairly common in Colorado. We didn't realize that. And so we've discovered that we have termites. And it's one of those things, too, that if you don't fix it, after I don't know how long it takes, they will literally destroy your house. They'll eat everything that's wood. And things like that. Things like that, and I don't know if that's examples that all of you can relate to, but I've done a lot of home improvement stuff over the years. If we're not careful, we can become slaves to our own fears and guilt and shame and blame that often comes with going into that valley place in our life. In Micah it says, "Though I have fallen, I will rise. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light." And I think this verse emphasizes that we fall sometimes. We make mistakes. We have setbacks. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I'm telling this to myself because I'm one of those people, like maybe all of us, I don't know, maybe more than others, I have no idea, but I want my life, I want the things that I do to just work. And when they don't work, I get really depressed. I really struggle. Adonia knows better than anybody. I get really down. And so I need a reminder, maybe some of you do as well, that falling down is not the end. It doesn't mean that I made a mistake, although maybe I did. It doesn't mean that I maybe shouldn't have done some things differently, but I'm not a failure because of it. It happens to everybody. And we have to get up again. One of the most precious times of my life was the most difficult time in my life, when I really went through a crisis of faith, and I questioned everything. I questioned the church's teachings. I questioned God. I questioned all the things that I learned growing up. And I had to really decide for myself what I believed and why. And I realized that I didn't have, like, the things that I stood upon in my beliefs up until that point in my life, I was 30 years old, didn't work for me anymore. They didn't, everything was kind of taken away. And I was left with kind of a blank slate, but also a lot of pain. So not completely blank, certain sense of skepticism and cynicism. And I had to rediscover everything again. My relationship with God, what I believed to be true, what I wanted to teach my kids, what kind of person did I want to be, what kind of person is it important to be. And I remember very clearly at that time, I had many moments where I was physically shaking, like I couldn't stop my hands from just shaking. Maybe I still have that experience every once in a while if I'm really stressed out. I don't know if that's like a universal thing, if everyone experiences that. But I remember very clearly just being able to just sitting there in my thoughts, my stress, and just not being able to stop my hands from shaking. It was the experience that I would never personally choose or would want for anybody. But it was where I was at. It was a valley of where I was at in my life, and I had to figure it out. And even though in some ways I look at it as the darkest time in my life, because it was a time in my life where I just didn't know if anything was true, and I was kind of ready to just throw it all out. But that journey of that year of my life, I'll never forget it. I mean, to me now, it's just like such a precious experience of me rediscovering for myself what was true. And I mean, it wasn't fun, but I don't know, those experiences are really meaningful. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. It made me who I am today. And I think that at that time in my life, what I had believed or what was the foundation of my understanding just wasn't enough anymore. And so going down to that valley gave me the motivation and the reason to dig deeper. I had to dig deeper, but then I think that because I digged, because I dug deeper, I think that we could climb higher in the next climb. Similarly, in our relationship, my relationship with Adonia, we've been married and blessed for over 20-something years now. I don't remember exactly, 20-something years. And sometimes you think, oh, we've been together for 20 years, and we should have things figured out by now. We should be at the peak. We've gone through so much, we've overcome a lot, and we have. I think all couples who've been together for 20 years have. And so we just want to keep going up. That's kind of the thought, right? But it doesn't work that way. I'm glad it does for you. Yeah, well, I agree, but it doesn't mean you're not going to go through some kind of hardship. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I'll let you know. Okay. Well, you're going to be around, right? Okay. Give me a second. Yeah, just want to keep going up. But then we discover, like we did recently, that, man, we weren't seeing eye to eye recently. And there was some stuff that we had to work through and talk through. And in some ways, it's like, and we were upset, we were angry at each other. and in some ways, it's like, well, why do we have to keep going through this? Can't we just get to a certain point, then it's easy coasting from there? It's kind of like the American idea of retirement, right? We work really hard, and then you retire, and then it's easy coasting, right? Easy coasting. That's the dream, right? Or like the Cinderella story of happily ever after, right? The Disney dream. Like, oh, you go through the difficulty, but then, you meet, what's the word? Your one Prince Charming, your true love, and then it's happily ever after. That's how the movie ends, anyway. And it's fun. I mean, these are fun notions, but very unrealistic. Very unrealistic. And I think that's because, I mean, of course, God didn't intend for the world and for our lives to be this way, but I do think that God intended for us to grow and deepen through life, through time. I do think that God intended for marriage to be that even if you're together 1,000 years, you shouldn't get tired of each other. You shouldn't get bored of the other person because everything's been done already. You know everything about that person. Somehow God intended it to be that our relationships, our lives should become richer and deeper through time. But that implies that things aren't just going to always be the same. That there's going to be a down, but then there should be a higher rise that comes from the down. Maybe there's a time of misunderstanding. Maybe there's a time of not seeing eye to eye. But then once you do come back together again, it's deeper and more meaningful. That's the way it seems to me. After I came out of that year of soul searching, I saw things from a very different perspective. I really felt like I was almost like a different person. Same person, but different perspective that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think that that's sometimes also the value of going into a valley. Sometimes we don't know it, but in order for us to get to where we want to go or for us to get to the next peak, we need to dig a little bit deeper. We need to gain new perspective. We need to gain new understanding, new skills, maybe more humility. These kind of things are really important in life. Maybe we need deeper conviction. This is another quote here. The person who is capable of going deep down into the valley is also capable of jumping to the pinnacle of the mountain. The pinnacle is never linked to another pinnacle, but to the valley. And together they have a common destiny. This is a universal principle. Those in the valley can one day come to the pinnacle of the mountain. So I think that we need to relook at these valleys in our life. We need to maybe change our perspective a little bit, myself included. Some of you are maybe much more mature in your understanding or wisdom in life, and you already know this. But for myself and I guess the rest of us, we need to be reminded that just because we're at a valley in life, just because we're not at that peak that we wish we were at, or maybe we're at a place in our life where we're just dealing with some major setbacks or obstacles, doesn't make us failures. even God has setbacks. And this is something that's very, I think you won't hear pretty much in any other church. This is something that's very kind of more specific to our understanding. This is from the Divine Principle. Abraham's course shows us that when human beings fail to complete their responsibility, the fulfillment of God's will is always delayed, and its restoration requires fulfillment of a greater indemnity condition. In Abraham's case, God's will was to be accomplished by merely sacrificing animals. Upon his failure, however, it had to be accompanied by offering his beloved son Isaac as a sacrifice, and had to be completed through Isaac and Jacob. So, just like in all things, it's important for us to seek what is God's perspective, what is God's view on these things. If God, who is God, the God of love and the God who created this universe, has setbacks, is not able to make all the things that he wants to happen in the time he wants them to happen, can't control the actions and decisions of us, his children, and is therefore his plans can be prolonged or delayed because of it. And how many times does God had to take one step forward, or two steps forward and one step back, or two steps forward, one step forward and two steps back, and had to restart something or go in a new direction? This is literally the story of the Bible. Pretty much every story from the beginning to the end. But does that make God a failure? And I don't think that God sees us as failures either. As much as we don't want to go up and down in life, we don't want to go down specifically, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And in fact, as it seems to be a part of the journey, unavoidable. So I think that an important thing for us to learn is to be able to learn how to embrace life when it doesn't go the way we would like it to go. Because these opportunities often give us a chance to shine a light on things in our life that may need to be changed, may need change, or may need growth, or may need to go deeper. Maybe an opportunity that we can experience life in a new way, appreciate the people in our life differently, or even to experience God in a new way. So that is my message today. Thank you for your listening. I'll offer a prayer. Dearest Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you so much for your never-ending desire, Heavenly Parent, to bring us, your children, back to the world and the life that you wanted us to live from the beginning, that dream you had, Heavenly Parent. From the moment that things went wrong, you committed to finding a way to bring us back. And we've come a long way, but we look around and we see our lives and we still have many challenges, Heavenly Parent. The world doesn't look like the world that surely you expected it to be. But Heavenly Parent, every moment and every day you are working in our lives to bring us back to you, Heavenly Parent, and Heavenly Parent, we never want to take that for granted. We never want to forget it. Even though there are many difficult moments, Heavenly Parent, I pray that we can be grateful amongst those difficulties and seek for what you are trying to show us and teach us, Heavenly Parent. And in those moments where we are at those peaks, Heavenly Parent, I also pray that we can be humble and give gratitude to you and the amazing people you put in our lives that make it all worthwhile. I thank you, and I offer this prayer on behalf of all our blessed families here represented. Amen, and I do. Thank you so much.